Good morning. So, thought I'd highlight this welcome screen that is shown right before the live classes, but it's also important information if you're joining the classes on YouTube later. So, basically, I wanted to say that everything I guide you through in this class is a suggestion. So, as you know, if you've been doing the classes, they're gentle classes. You might need to modify for any reason, please do. And if you're not sure, you can always sit something out. Um, the main thing is that you're listening to your body, and you can always come back to a neutral position like child's pose or a forward bend or lying on your back, or anything that's comfortable for you. And also, I'm always giving cues for the breath. So if those cues don't match your breath or if they don't feel comfortable to you, then please breathe freely. Don't force your breath in any way at all. Just move at a comfortable pace, breathe normally, and just let things flow as they will naturally flow for you without worrying about coordinating if that's uncomfortable. All right, so we will get started here. All right, so it is fall, getting on to late October, and if you live in Ontario, where I am, you'll know that the leaves are changing colors on the trees. As I glance outside, I see that a lot of the trees have lost their leaves by now. And our theme this week is letting go. Right, so we tend to have, I know I do, tend to hold on to things, especially if they're good. Sometimes even if they're not good, the devil you know is sometimes more compelling than the unknown. So, in life, everything is changing. It's falling away. It's, rebirth like the trees. It seems like they die, but they come back in the spring. And if we can connect to that energy of letting go and allowing space in our lives for something new to come in, sometimes something arrives often even better than we could have anticipated. Yet when we're holding on, we're creating a lot of tension. And so that letting go can feel like a lot of freedom, but it can also be really scary to let go and dive into the unknown. So that's where we're at today. We're going to work on some forward bends. Our focus will be on releasing the hips and the legs a little bit, and focusing on forward bends. So in forward bends, we want to try to keep lots of length in the spine, and you'll see this more when I'm on the mat. So we want to kind of bring a bit of back bend quality to the forward bend, so a little bit of extension and then forward. So again, I'll explain that as we go through the class, but we're going to start as we generally do, lying down. So you can lie down on your back, and I will see you on the mat. I have a few sniffles this morning, so I apologize if I sneeze or sniffle. So as you're ready, you can come to lie down on your mat. And as always, if another position is more comfortable for you, you are welcome to be in whatever position you like. Excuse me. Yeah, fall comes with letting go of the leaves and also often comes with a few sniffles, so sorry about that. So as you come to your mat, tune into your body for a moment. Notice how you feel in this moment. Maybe if there's tension in your body, you could be aware of that without dwelling there. Feel where your body makes contact with the earth and find maybe a sense of grounding, of releasing and dropping into the earth a little bit more. And then feel a sense perhaps of letting go with your breath. So the exhale is the phase where we let go of the breath. And see if you can really have that sense of dropping down and releasing as you exhale. not anticipating the next inhale, but allowing it to come to you without effort, without strain, just letting it happen. And then the exhale, letting go of the weight of the world that you may be carrying around on your shoulders. Letting go of any tension anywhere in your body. And if there is something in particular in your life that you would like to let go of, you might bring that into your mind. And I might suggest that it not be something really big and difficult, which will distract you from the practice, but maybe something a little lighter, easier. Or maybe it's simply a matter of wanting to go through your closet and let go of some things that don't bring you joy anymore. Maybe it's letting go of a certain commitment that's no longer working for you. So take a moment. If there's something in your life you want to let go of, bring that into your mind. Try not to create a big story or even a plan of how that will happen. Just the intention, the idea, the feeling of letting this go. And as you exhale, feel yourself let go a little more. And then take a couple of deep breaths. Inhale fully. Exhale completely. A couple more like that. Feeling yourself being a little energized now, a little recharged by the breath. And then when you feel ready to begin to bring a little movement into your practice today, you can draw the knees up in towards your chest. And gently draw the knees forward and back. If you want to coordinate your breath, you'll exhale as you draw the knees in and inhale as you move the knees away. As always, as I mentioned earlier, if the movement doesn't match your breath, if you want to move at a different pace than your breath is comfortable moving, just breathe naturally and move in the pace that feels comfortable to you. If you want to make a few circles with your knees, feel free. It's about freeing up the lower back and the sacrum a little bit before we come into some bigger movements for the hips, legs, and low back today. You can give a little squeeze in, maybe rock a bit side to side as long as that's comfortable for you. And then you can release your feet to the floor. The arms can rest on your body or they can come to the floor, out to your sides. We'll work with one leg at a time, starting with the knees and the ankles side by side together. We'll take one knee and open it towards the ground. And then bring it back to center. And take the other knee and open it toward the ground. And back to center. Notice how your hips feel, your inner thighs, your lower back. Does it feel the same, more or less, on each side? Or does one side feel maybe tighter than the other? We can add a little bit of a twist. So here you might want the arms to the sides, let both knees go to one side. Come back to the center. Both knees to the other side. Back to center. Side to side a few times like that. If it feels better for you to continue working with just one leg at a time, then please feel free. any other modification that might be better for you is also fine. Right, eventually coming back to the center, walk the heels in underneath the hip, or sorry, underneath the knees, and slowly lift up into a nice easy bridge, feeling the spine lengthen. And then you can slowly roll down, bringing the spine and the hips back to alignment. Let's take both knees into the chest, give a little squeeze. And we'll bring the left foot to the floor, keeping the right knee in. You can take your hands behind the thigh and stretch and bend that knee. So stretching up, breath in. Again, if you're coordinating breath, you'll exhale as the knee comes in and inhale as it lifts. You can stay a few breaths, circle around with your ankle, going one way and then the other. And press your heel up toward the ceiling. For those of you who want a little more stretch, even though we're just warming up, if it feels like a little more would be good for you, you can gently draw the leg in, maybe back off a bit. Draw in and back off a bit, easing into that stretch. And then eventually, if you'd like, you can stay for a couple of breaths in whatever stretch feels good for you. So not so much that you're tensing up or creating any kind of tension in your body. Check in. But you want to feel that the leg is active. Heel is pressing up, the knee is pulling up, the thigh is engaged to help release and open the back of the leg. And then you can bring that knee into the chest. Extend the other leg. And this is optional if that feels uncomfortable for you. Just keep the knee bent. And then some movement with your hip. So it could be keeping both hands on the knee and doing some little circles, maybe bigger circle by taking your left hand away from your knee. Or maybe it's other shapes, maybe a little zigzag forward and back or side to side. So feeling into where your range of motion is in a comfortable way, not going all the way as far as you can, creating strain. If it feels good, you might bring the knee into the left hand and maybe roll a bit to the left, coming into a gentle twist and then back onto your back. So play around. Get a little movement in there. And then eventually come back to center. And you can bend your left knee again if you've straightened it. Place your right ankle above the knee on the thigh. And check in. Is this enough stretch for you? So many people will feel a stretch in the outer right thigh or hip here. Some might feel it in the inner thigh as well. So it kind of depends on where you're at. If you want more stretch than what you currently are receiving in this position, bringing the legs closer to you. So it could be sliding a block or something sturdy under your left foot. It could be using a belt to extend your reach or reaching your hands right behind your left thigh. Here you can rock a little side to side in whatever position you find yourself. And eventually coming back to the center, take one more breath here. And then releasing. As you come down to even the hips again after doing one side, you can try lifting up the hips in a nice, gentle, easy bridge, and then lowering back down. Bring both knees into the chest, give a little squeeze. And then we'll keep the left knee in and release the right foot to the floor. And you can take your hands behind the thigh, stretch and bend that leg. So reaching up as you inhale, squeezing in as you exhale if you're coordinating breath. You can leave the leg up in the air and do a few circles. One direction and the other. Check in that you're not creating tension in your shoulders or your jaw. You can actually let go with your hands. It depends if your legs are quite tight and they're back here and your arms aren't so long. It feels like a lot of effort, or it may be impossible to hold the leg. A belt, could also help out, but it's actually just fine to let the leg be. Good. Flexing the foot toward the ceiling. Heel toward the ceiling. And if you want more, and you can reach behind the leg here, bending the knee is totally fine, of course. Bringing the leg maybe a little closer, a little further away, inviting maybe a bit more stretch, and then turning that stretch off. And then if you like, you can stay for a couple of breaths in whatever position feels like a good stretch for you. Not too much, not too little. And then we'll hug the knee into the chest. And again, you could extend the right leg or keep it bent, whatever feels better for you. And then we'll do some movement for the left hip. So again, it could be little circles, keeping the hands on the knee. Maybe a bigger circle, releasing the right hand. Could be even bigger, letting the hand slide off the knee. Or any other shape or movement that feels good for your hip joint. Again, another option would be to take the knee across the body, rolling to your side a little bit, any amount, and then back to center. And then hugging the knee in, you can bend the right knee again, place the left ankle just above the right knee. Again, check in. This side may not feel the same as the other side. It may not be the exact same position that you go into. So staying here, a block under the right foot, or reaching behind with your hands, or using a belt to extend your reach if necessary. You can stay stationary or rock a little side to side. And then coming back to the center, slowly release. Bringing the heels under the knees. Again, we'll lift in a nice easy bridge. And then exhale and roll down. Pause here for a moment. You can bring your hands onto your belly or onto the rib cage as you like. Notice the movement of your breath. Come back to that feeling of letting go, softening through the shoulders, the neck, the sacrum on the ground, the lower back. With that intention of letting go, feel your breath leave your body as you sink down. And then we'll bring the knees and the ankles back together. And here, taking the soles of the feet together, let the knees come apart. You can breathe in here if you're coordinating breath. Bringing the knees back together, feet to the floor. Give a little squeeze to the knees, press down with the low back. And then again, opening the knees and closing. The breath, if you're working to coordinate, is inhale as you open, exhale as you bring the knees back together. Press down, squeeze, and then release. You can keep moving a few more times, or if it feels comfortable to you, you might let the knees relax to the sides. You want to make sure that you're not holding tension around the abdomen or the inner thighs or hips here. And if that's the case, and you have blocks handy, or even pillows, cushions, even a blanket you could tuck underneath your thigh or your knee to support. Or maybe it's just one side that needs support rather than both sides, or it could be support under both sides. Good. If you've been holding the knees open, slowly bring them back together. Bring the knees up in toward your chest. And with one hand on each knee, we'll stretch the legs toward the ceiling, arms either extending overhead or it could be out to the sides. And then we'll come back into the chest, hands to knees, knees to chest. So inhaling, finding a comfortable arm position as you extend the legs, and exhaling, releasing back into the chest. Hugging the knees for a couple of breaths. Any little movement that might feel good to you here is great. We're going to make our way upright, so you can bring your feet to the floor and maybe roll to the side. Use your opposite hand to support you to come upright so that you're not straining at all. Make it nice and easy. When you come upright, you can swing your legs around and come to all fours. Hands line up under the shoulders, knees under the hips. We'll lift the tail, lift the head, draw the shoulders back. Try not to crank your head back. Think about the extension being from the crown of the head to the tailbone rather than sort of from the eyes. And then rounding the back, you can either stay upright or move your hips toward your heels in child's pose. So coming to all fours, adding that extension, keeping length in the back of the neck. And then flexion, maybe adding child's pose. For those of you who are wanting a little bit more here, you can alternate downward dog. So you'd come up to downward dog on an exhale, back to all fours, back to either your all fours flexion or cat pose, all fours, and downward dog. So follow your intuition here. What feels good for you? Check in with your body. Maybe you'd like to stay in child's pose. You could rest your head on your hands if you like, or on the ground. Maybe you're feeling a little more energetic and would prefer to spend a bit of time in downward dog, maybe walking the feet in place, stretching out the calves a bit. We will eventually make our way to a standing forward bend. So if you're in downward dog, you can step forward. If you are on all fours, you can bring a foot under, lift, and bring the other foot under. It doesn't really matter how you get there. But you want to find your way to a standing forward bend. Option to bring the elbows onto the thighs or keep the body hanging from the hips. Bend your knees a little so that your lower back can lengthen and release. Straight legs, the lower back tends to round more. And then as long as you're not suffering from any disc issues in your lower back or osteoporosis or any kind of issues with weakening of the bones, you want to just come upright with a nice long spine. Otherwise, you can roll up slowly. Let the arms dangle. Let the head come up last over your shoulders. And coming to Tadasana, the mountain pose. And I'm just stepping out of the way. I can see in the screen that there's a lot of light behind me with the sunlight in the window. So coming to Tadasana, let's roll the shoulders up, back, and down. And you might hear some creaking or crunching. As long as it's not uncomfortable or painful, it's fine. And then maybe roll one shoulder and then the other. Let your hips swing, knees flex. If you like, you can go the other way as well. Right, and come back to the center. So from here, we're going to start to work with a little bit of balance. So the first pose that we'll work on for balance is just lifting up onto the balls of the feet and then lowering down. Lift up. It's also good for strengthening the feet. Lower down. And then maybe add an arm movement. As you lift the heels, lift the arms. As you lower the heels, lower the arms. See if you can lower the heels at the same rate as the arms. If you want to coordinate breathing, inhale up, exhale, coming down. Know that this is trickier than it looks, and it's quite common that we get up and kind of lose balance and go for a little walk or, have to readjust. So if that's the case for you, that's absolutely normal. Right, as you come down this time, let your weight sink into your heels. Take your hands and let them rest on the top ridge of your hips around the waist. And shift your weight to one foot while you bring up the other knee. Rotate it to the side and bring it back down. Shift your weight to that foot, lift the other knee, rotate, and come back down. And do that a few times. And know that you may lose your balance a little bit here. It's quite fine if you leave the toes on or near the ground to do this. Or if it looks something more like this for you, maybe that's okay too. If you need the arms for balance, absolutely use them. Good, eventually coming back to both feet on the ground, let the arms release down, take a breath in, lift the shoulders, roll them back and down, and find lots of expansion across the heart, dropping down into the heels. And imagine these roots, I think we talked about in the first week, going down from the sit bones through the heels into the earth. Feel really anchored and grounded. Talked about the trees losing their leaves at this time of year. So maybe imagine that you are a tree, or you can just imagine feeling really rooted and grounded. Weight more in your heels than in the balls of your feet. You might even pick up your toes and feel your thighs drop, your knees engage. And then keeping that little bit of weight back, let the toes come down. You can even spread your toes out, creating a nice wide stance for balance. So we'll come into tree pose, and there's lots of ways to do this pose. It is a balance pose. And I encourage you this morning to not use the wall to support you, but choose a version of the pose that gives you enough challenge in the balance department, but not so much that you are continually losing your balance. So shift the weight to one leg, doesn't matter which. Come on to the toes of the other foot and rotate that knee out to the side. This could be your pose. Toes on the ground, a few inches away from the other foot. Maybe you bring the foot in closer and suddenly it gets a little bit wobblier. Taking the one foot right off the ground, again, adds another adds another dimension of working with balance. You want to avoid pressing against your knee, even though it's very tempting to just kind of rest your heel on the top of your knee. Not a great idea for your knee. But if you want to bring that leg higher, you could tuck it into the inner thigh. So whatever works for you. And then the hands can come together. If you need them out to the sides for balance, that's a really nice compromise here. If you find that you keep losing your balance, maybe choose another position where you can feel a little bit more sturdy. And if you like, you can raise the arms up over the head. I would suggest keep the arms a little wider, keep the shoulders down, jaw relaxed. And if you're imagining you're a tree, you might imagine that your arms create the crown of the tree. And then letting go of the pose, like the trees let go of the leaves, slowly release the arms down. And you can also slowly release the leg. The standing leg may need a little shake, releasing any tension. You might bend and straighten your knees a few times or wiggle, shake a little just to release any tension that you may have brought in working with tree. So we'll go to the other side now. Shifting your weight to the other foot, coming onto the toes of the foot that's going to lift, rotating out, externally rotating at the hip. Again, you can stay here, move the foot in, lift onto the calf or ankle, or you probably reach down to guide your foot into the side of the thigh. Either way, toes point down toward the ground. So from this balanced position, and you could bring the hands to the heart or keep them stretched out to the sides if that helps you with balance. And then maybe lifting the arms overhead, pressing down into that standing leg and lifting up through the waist, through the rib cage, down through the shoulders, up through the crown of the head. And when you're ready to release, just like the trees releasing their leaves slowly, letting the arms come down and then releasing the leg to the ground. You can give the standing leg a little shake, maybe the whole body a little shake and release. And then we'll do a few forward bends to release the back and the hips. So taking a breath in, coming up. Good. Exhale, bend your knees a little bit. Release down towards the earth. Let the head go. Inhale, lifting up. Exhale, coming forward. So I talked earlier about creating length or a bit of extension in the back as you do a forward bend. So next time you come forward, think about coming forward with a long spine, maybe even stopping with your hands on your thighs and then coming back up. So we keep a bit of extension in the flexion as opposed to rolling and rounding the back as you come forward, which can create some strain and overstretching in the lower back. So coming forward with a long spine, if you want to go further forward, at some point you let the spine relax forward, but you find that length as you come back up. Good, one or two more with that focus on keeping a little bit of extension and length in the spine, both in the going forward and in the coming back up. Next time you come forward, bend your knees enough to bring your hands to the ground. We'll step back to either all fours or downward dog. If you come to downward dog, eventually lowering your knees to all fours. Take a breath in and lengthen the spine. Exhale. And if child's pose is comfortable, come to child's pose for a few breaths. If you want to be in puppy pose, you can rest on your forearms, keeping the hips over the knees. And that's a good option if fully flexing at the knee joint or fully having the ankles extended is uncomfortable for you. So you can always be up here, maybe tucking the toes under. Take a few breaths in child's pose or wherever you find yourself. And then when you're ready to come upright, you're going to come up slowly. If it's comfortable, you can just come up onto your heels and swing your legs around. We're going to come to a seated position, and I would recommend that if you have a blanket or a firm but not too thick cushion, you can bring that under your sit bones. So I think, yeah, I'll face you. I might be able to see a little better what's going on. So you're going to come onto the edge of your blanket and stretch your legs straight out in Dandasana, or staff pose, stick pose. And in this pose, you can bring your hands to the floor. Depending on how high your hips are and how long your arms are, you might come onto your fists or your fingertips, taking the arms further or closer, bending the elbows as you need to, and lifting up through the chest. Try not to bring the shoulders up, shoulders down and back, pressing into the ground to lift the chest. You might find your hip flexors and your lower back working a little bit. That's quite normal here. And then you can take the arms and extend them overhead, breathing in. As you exhale, bring one knee in toward your chest. And you can bring your hands around your knee and use that little bit of leverage to lift your spine nice and tall. And then from here, we'll take the knee and let it come down to the side here. Again, a block or a blanket or a pillow may be helpful for you to support the knee. If you feel a tension or a pulling at the hip or inner thigh, supporting the knee is a great idea. So from here, taking a breath in, coming up, long spine, we're going to hinge forward at the hips, leading with the chest, keeping a little bit of extension in the spine. Bring your hands to your leg. And again, inhale, lift up, hinge forward a bit. You can maybe go a little further if that's available to you, but know that going very far in this pose is not a requirement, nor is it available for most people. Good. Eventually, when you come down into this pose again, you're going to keep the hands on the leg. You can have one hand over the other or hands side by side. You'll lift up with a breath in and find even more extension. So you'll feel the muscles of your back engaging. And then as you take your next exhale, you can slide the hands toward your foot. Let the back round now. Let the head come down toward the knee. The hands could stay on the leg, or you could use the hands against the ground to brace yourself. Depending on how flexible you're feeling today, you might go deeper or come out of the pose a little bit. We'll take a few breaths here. Janu Shirshasana is the name of this pose. Try to relax your shoulders here. Keep your leg engaged, so toes point to the ceiling. You're pulling back with the femur, the big bone of the upper leg, towards the hip. Drawing up with the kneecap to engage the thigh. When you're ready to come up, we'll lift up with a breath in, taking the arms overhead, and then exhale to release. And then we'll stretch out both legs, coming back to Dandasana. Hands at your sides, either fists, fingertips, or flat hands. If you need to use blocks to get a little more length for your arms, that's also fine. So chest lifting, shoulders down and back, neck long and released. Take a breath in, reach up. As you exhale, bring the other knee into your chest. And again, hold on to the knee and use that leverage. Pull back against the knee to find lots of length in your spine again. And then you can take the knee and release it to the side. Good. And I make sure that you can see me. Okay, I'm going to move back a little bit. And then from here, breathing in, exhale with a long spine, come forward, hands to the leg. And again, inhale, lift. Exhale, forward. Inhale, lift. Exhale, forward. And we'll stay here. Again, hands on the leg. It could be side by side or one hand over the other. Take a breath in. Find lots of length in the spine. Exhale and slide forward, letting the head come down. I didn't mention that you could support the bent knee, but hopefully you've done that if necessary. Hands can stay on the leg or brace yourself against the ground if you need. Breathing into the back of the body. Keeping the left, or whichever leg is straight actually, keeping that leg active, engaged, pulling up on the thigh, flexing the foot. And then when you're ready, come all the way up, breathing in. Exhale to release. Stretch both legs out again. And give them a little shake. Good. And then back to Dandasana. Both hands on the ground. You know, the other thing that I didn't mention, and this might have been helpful and might still be helpful, is if you feel a lot of pull in the hamstrings, the back of the leg or the knee, placing a block or a blanket under, you know, in Janu Sirsasana it would be the straight leg, but for the next pose where we'll come forward with both legs straight, maybe it's a block or a blanket under both knees. So from Dandasana, we'll take a breath in, lift up. Exhale, hinge forward at your hips. Bring the hands to the legs. So same thing here, lifting. Long spine, chest leads the way. Legs stay engaged. Great, and then last time, you can stay for a few breaths. So the hands again could be on the legs or on the floor. You want to pull back with the hips and forward with the chest, and then let the head come down. We'll take just a few more breaths here. And then lift all the way up, breathing in. Exhale and release the arms down. Now let's bring both knees into the chest. And we'll take both knees apart. Again, you might find it helpful to support your knees. Optional. Bring your hands a little behind you. You might be up on your fingertips or flat hands, depending on, again, the length of your arms and torso. You're using the hands behind you to lift up tall. So there's a real tendency here to roll back and tilt the pelvis back. If you imagine the pelvis as being more like a bowl, and if that bowl is full of water, you want the water to be level, not tilting back and running out the back of your bowl. This may be plenty for you today. This might be just enough stretch for you, in which case stay there. For those of you who want more, and there is room to go, you might want more, but there may not be any availability to go forward, but you could bring the hands to the ankles, use that little bit of leverage, so pull up on the ankles to draw the shoulders down and back. And then if you still want more, you're going to hinge forward at your hips. For most people, there's not a lot of movement here. For some, there is a lot. So depending on the shape of your hips, most people won't be able to go too much further than maybe an inch or two forward. Some will be able to lay their head on the ground. But anything in between, anything is totally fine here. The point is you're feeling a stretch in your, in your inner thighs, most likely, and maybe some release in the hips and low back. And when you've gone a little forward, and if you want to bring a little more ease into the pose, you can bring the hands to the ground or keep them on the feet and let the Spine round a little forward. Soft breath here. A little focus on the exhale, letting go. Good. And then when you're ready, if you've come forward, slowly come up. Take the hands to the outer knees and bring the knees together. Give yourself a little hug and a squeeze. You can bring the head down if that's comfortable for you. For some of you, resting the head on the knees might be an option, or just wherever it comfortably sits. Right, and then we'll release. So if you've got props all around you, just move them to the side. You can come off your blanket or cushion if you were sitting on one. And you'll bring your feet out in front of you, a little wider than your shoulders, hands supporting you from behind. And we'll start with just a little side-to-side movement with the knees. So not so much that your torso starts to twist, but just feeling a little bit of movement in the hip joints. And then when we make that move bigger, if you choose to join me in making that move bigger, the knees can come down to one side, but the opposite arm is going to have to lift to keep the shoulder in a good position. So the knees come down. Take the arm that you've lifted, bring it around, all the way around behind you. You can bring it to the opposite shoulder and look over that shoulder behind you for a little length and twist. And then you'll come back around. Take the knees the other way, swing that arm all the way around, bring it to the shoulder, and look over that shoulder. You can take a breath or two here if you like, and then switch. So we'll go side to side a couple times. Take your time with this. If it feels good to hang out in that twist for a couple of breaths, do that. Use the hand on the ground to really lengthen the spine as you twist so you're not collapsing. Maybe one more to either side. Right, and then as you come back to the center, you can stretch your legs straight out. Give them a little shake against the ground. And then we'll come back to lie down. So as you come back onto your back as a little bit of counter pose after the twisting, you can bring the knees into the chest and do a little forward and back movement as we started the class today. Exhaling as you draw in, inhaling as you move away. Right, and then eventually bringing your feet to the floor. You might want to have a block handy. You can also do this next series without a block. You can do it just with your hips on the ground. But if you have a block and if it feels good for you to use the block to support your hips in a really gentle, a little bit of an inversion, you can lift up and slide the block. It could be a blanket or even a cushion, as long as it's firm. You don't want to be sort of sinking into a soft pillow through the hips. You want something fairly firm. But again, you can do this with your hips on the ground. So from here, the hands could rest on your body. They could come to the ground, whatever you like. And we'll bring one knee in and then the other. And that just helps to keep the back from straining as we lift the knees. You want to make sure the block is underneath your sacrum, so it's not on any part of your lower back. And then you can try extending the legs toward the ceiling. And then here, opening the legs a little and bringing them back together. This is optional. If you just want to stay in this supported version of a sort of a modified shoulder stand, you can stay here. Otherwise, taking the legs apart, bringing them back together. A nice option here would actually be to take your hands to the thighs and support them as you take the legs wide and bring them back together. You can either stay in the upright position, keep moving, or stay in the open leg position. Flex your feet, press out through the heels if you're staying, and feel the strength of your legs. You can certainly use your hands to support your legs a little, but feel that you're really strengthening and working those big muscles around the thighs and hips. Try not to bring tension into your shoulders, or neck, or face. When you're ready, you bring the knees back together, or legs back together, knees back into the chest. And then again, keep the back nice and soft to release the legs one at a time to the ground. You can extend the arms overhead, take a big breath in. And then exhale, bring your arms down to your sides. If you're on a block, you'll press into the feet, remove the block, lower down. And then if you like, you can bring the knees back to the chest, maybe any movement, side to side, circling around, or forward and back with the knees. Take your time with whatever might feel good to bring a little more ease and release to the lower back before we head into Shavasana, which is our next posture. So you can stay on your back, or as always, if there's another position you prefer for Shavasana, relaxation, you can take that position. So that could be lying on your side, as long as there's enough padding so that your hip and shoulder are comfortable and your head is in a good position, that's fine. Could be on your belly, could be seated. I've even had people occasionally do Shavasana, the relaxation standing. So it really depends on what feels best for you today. So our focus in the class today has been on letting go. Our forward bends help us to focus on deepening the exhalation phase of the breath. And that's the phase of the breath that reminds us to let go. We exhale, we let go of the breath. So come back to that awareness of your breath. Feel a sense of softening and letting go with each exhalation. Letting go of the effort of the practice. Letting go of tension in the body. Check in with your jaw, face, and neck, areas where we tend to hold tension. Soften the shoulders, arms, and hands. Feel the gentle rhythmic movement of your rib cage and soften through the ribs, belly, lower back. And feel the weight of your pelvis on the ground, sinking into that weight and support. Feel your thighs release. We worked a lot with the thighs, really relaxing the quadriceps in the front of the thighs now, which have been working and engaging a lot today. Relax the hamstrings in the back of the legs, and the adductors and abductors, the inner and outer thighs releasing. As you relax the thighs, feel your knees softly drop. calves, ankles, and feet all let go. Feel with each exhalation that you could let go a little bit more. That whatever holding or tension you discover as you inhale, you could maybe soften and let that go a bit more as you exhale. For those of you who would enjoy staying a little longer in Shavasana, you can ignore the next instructions or turn off your video and carry on. And for those of you who are ready to get on with whatever is next in your day, and start to deepen your breath a little bit. Find a little more emphasis on your inhalation, energizing, expanding. Exhale, softening and releasing. And as you deepen your inhalation and feel eventually inspired to move, you can wiggle your fingers, your toes, stretch and move any way that would feel good to you. Excuse me. Eventually rolling onto one side. Taking your time to return to a seated position. And bringing your palms together. So again, if there was some particular thing that you would like to let go of in your life, bring that into your mind. Create the intention of that letting go without needing to create a story or a plan. Just starting with the intention. Maybe tuning into how it would feel to let that go. And then as you go through your week, be staying open to opportunities to make this letting go happen. Namaste. Have a great day.